Welcome to the Mentally Stronger podcast, the podcast where with every episode, we're learning practical ways to let go of stress and struggles, grow our mental strength, and live a happier, healthier, more meaningful life. I'm your host, Melly O'Brien, co-founder of mindfulness.com and creator of the Deep Resilience Method. I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Let's dive in to today's episode. Today, we are going to be exploring how to tame your inner critic. And we're going to do that by developing greater self-compassion. So when we first hear about self-compassion, often I find that people don't really understand the depth of the benefit of this practice. When we train in self-compassion, it can be deeply transforming. This is one of my most fundamental mental strength practices. An analogy for this, to give you an idea, imagine living in a house with someone who was constantly following you around the house, criticizing you, berating you, judging you, telling you you're not enough. Can you imagine the energy of that house? You can imagine that living there, it would become really tense, uneasy, and demoralising. Well, it's been said that our mind is our true home, right? Because although we can leave our house, we carry our minds with us wherever we go. And as much as we might try to escape it, numb it, or struggle with it, it's always with us. Many of us are living with constant feelings of unworthiness, of inner tension and stress, of inner struggle, because our inner voice is harsh. It's mean, right? But if we can train in bringing a friendly attitude towards ourselves, we can change our entire inner world into a place of ease, rest, and kindness, a place that we don't need to numb or distract ourselves from or struggle with because, we're at home within ourselves. So to continue the analogy, imagine that your mind could become like a house with a warm, crackling fire, a loving, supportive friend to live with, someone who speaks to you with respect and kindness, who's there for you when you're down. This home is a place where you can relax, gain strength, feel love. So how can we change things if our inner environment is a place of tension, a place of hostility or unease? So, the way that we often speak to ourselves inside our own heads has a very harsh, cold, or as we said, even hostile tone to it, especially if something's gone wrong or we've made a mistake, right? That's when this voice tends to really arc up. So one of the ways that we can start to change things is by practicing self-compassionate self-talk. So if we can start deliberately practicing self-talk that sounds warm, friendly, and kind, then we can switch the voice of the inner critic to the voice of a supportive friend or coach. So here's what I propose to you for the week ahead for your mental strength practice. If you catch your inner voice sounding harsh, if that inner critic is on, just take a pause, maybe take a breath, and change the tone back to warm and kind. Say kind and encouraging things to yourself like, good on you for giving that a go, honey. Or, that was a really kind thing that you did, mate. Hey, you really gave it your best shot, and we'll do better next time. We'll try again. So now if you don't find terms of endearment like honey or mate useful or helpful, just of course drop them. These are just examples. So you can experiment with this and find the way that feels right for you. But when you're having a hard time, especially as well, so if something's going wrong, you made a mistake or somebody said something insensitive or, one of those moments, try using the tone of voice and speaking words a similar way that you would speak to a loved one who is hurting, right? Say soothing things to yourself, like it's okay, you're human, everyone makes mistakes sometimes, or something like, oh, this is a really hard moment, may I be kind to myself in this time. Now, I know it might feel awkward at first to start speaking to yourself in this way. I know it was a little bit awkward for me when I started speaking to myself in this way. But if you think about it, isn't it even stranger to be verbally abusive and mean to yourself? I mean, you'd probably never talk to a friend like that. If we created some kind of weird device, we put it on your head and it had a loudspeaker that projected all of your thoughts out into the open, and we could hear that inner critic, the way that it's speaking to you, I think we'd immediately realize, yeah, maybe it is a little bit awkward to try speaking to yourself in this kind of way, but it's totally weird and really, really difficult to be speaking to ourselves in this other way, right? So this week, focus on befriending yourself instead of berating yourself. Now, before we close this episode up, I want to say something, because I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, mental strength coaching, teaching mindfulness and emotional intelligence skills over the years. And I know, I know that some of you are listening to this and you're like, it sounds like a good idea, but, and this is the thought that many of you are going to be thinking. I know what comes up for people is that you're thinking, self-compassion sounds nice, but if I don't be harsh and mean to myself, if I don't crack the whip on myself, so to speak, I'm going to get soft. I'm going to lose my edge. I'm going to stop trying to improve myself. I'm not going to be able to succeed in life and be hungry and competitive to do the things I want. Okay, so here's the thing. Research compellingly shows, so the researchers who specialize in this, Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, have done a huge amount of research on self-compassion. And it compellingly shows that there's a very strong link between self-compassion and success. So it actually gives you more of an edge. In fact, I recently did a podcast about this. I released it on the 20th of June, and it's called The Link Between Self-Compassion and Success. So if you want to hear more about the research, go dig into that episode. I know that voice in the head may try to convince you that you need to be nasty to yourself. You need to be mean to yourself to be a success, to take care of yourself, to stay fit, to achieve your goals, to do things more effectively. But the reality is that there's no evidence to support the fact that being nasty to yourself gives you any kind of edge. In fact, the research shows the opposite. Think about this just logically for a second. If there's a kid trying to learn to ride a bike and every time they fall off, you say, oh, you're an idiot. You're such a loser. You're never going to get this. Or, telling them that they're not enough unless they try to ride the bike. It's not as effective as supporting them and encouraging them and being kind to them, telling them they'll get it next time, and telling them, that their self-worth is not dependent on whether or not they can ride the bikes. You just encourage them to keep trying, they're doing great, right? So through cultivating this kind of self-compassion, we can find both greater ease and calm, and also the motivation, the skill, and the vitality within ourselves to take care of ourselves and achieve our dreams. So now, of course, the added benefit of this is that when you are kind to yourself, that will also ripple out and be a gift to everyone you know and everyone you meet, making you a better leader, a better parent, a better lover, a better partner. So this is the invitation for your mental strength practice for this week ahead. Every time you hear the voice of the inner critic pipe up, just take a deep breath in that moment, and then I want you to switch the tone back to warm and kind. So say encouraging and kind things to yourself. In this way, with repeated practice, you tame the inner critic, lay down new neural pathways for lasting inner peace and confidence, and improve the overall quality of your life. This practice has made a seismic shift in my own life. And yeah, I speak from experience when I say this is one of those practices that it seems small, but pays back in huge ways. So do go ahead and give it a try. I wish you well with this practice. If you want to let me know how you go with this week's practice or any practices, drop me a line on social media. I do love hearing from you. I love hearing your stories. I love hearing your wins and your challenges. And I look forward to being with you again on the next episode of the Mentally Stronger podcast. If you know someone who you think might benefit from listening to this episode, share it with them. Sharing it could really help them to feel better and improve the quality of their life. And if you found this episode helpful, remember to subscribe to the podcast so that you can receive more tips on growing your mental strength, and you can keep practicing along with us every week. If you are wanting more support in becoming mentally stronger, come over to my website and take a look at all the coaching and training options that I have there for you. And I also have a bunch of free resources, including a 5-day mental strength challenge that you can begin right away to kickstart your mental strength, improve your mental well-being, as well as your happiness and resilience. You can find all the links for this in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care and stay strong.